I'm Richard Taylor and I'm here on the road I live on, the cherry tree lined Milton Road in North Cambridge. This is the road which connects the science and business parks and the site of the new North Cambridge station with the city centre. And it's a very important road and a key road for Cambridge. Now, central government has decided to invest in Cambridge and our local councils have decided to put £23 million of that money into this road. And I think that's an excellent opportunity to improve this road and make it easier for people to get down in all forms of transport, cars, buses and cycles. What I'd like to see is properly segregated continuous cycle ways down the full length of the road, segregated from motor traffic by trees and planting. I think that there's an opportunity here to get more people using bikes. We don't have the same level of cycling as is seen in other places, in the Netherlands for example, and we can make cycling more safe and more attractive if we provide decent infrastructure. Milton Road is a wide road, it's 20 metres wide along most of its length. In order to get segregated cycleways, I think councils will have to move trees. I think they should be looking into the technological options for doing that and for planting larger, more established trees so that the character of this road as a tree-lined road can be maintained. I think councils should put back cherry trees.
Technology for moving trees is available. These images are from Victoria in Australia. The Greater Cambridge City Deal Board should be prepared to set out plans that involve moving trees. If our local contractors don't currently have the capabilities, then this project is an opportunity for them to obtain them. Moving trees will enable trees on Milton Road to be placed in well-designed tree pits. These can keep the trees healthy and reduce the chances of damaging the surface of the road, pavements and cycleways. I've been lobbying our local councillors, asking them to be open to the possibility of moving trees and planting larger specimens. I've also asked Greater Cambridge City Deal officers to include such options in what they present to councillors and the public. A recent presentation to North Cambridge's councillors did show the installation of larger, more established trees.
I don't think it makes sense to constrain the plans for the road on the basis of trees like those behind me. I think these small trees can easily be moved or replaced with even bigger and better specimens. We have to ensure that buses can get down this road quickly and in consistent times. But the real problem comes when the road itself is congested, and that happens when there are problems on the M11 and the A14. So what we have to do is ensure that when there is a problem on the M11 and A14, that we react to it as quickly as possible and divert the traffic on other major routes rather than through the city centre.
Traffic needs to be able to leave Cambridge easily in the evening peak. Often there are queues at these traffic lights with King's Hedges Road, even when the road ahead by the Science Park is clear. Officers have agreed that improving the timings of these traffic lights will lead to significant improvements, but these key improvements have not yet been included in the traffic modelling.
The City Deal needs to work closely with Highways England to make sure that plans such as extending the slip road behind me back to the Science Park actually happen. If we had that slip road in place, then it would make it easier for traffic to leave the Science Park and to leave Cambridge via Milton Road, particularly in the evening peak. Here in Long Stanton, which is just 10 minutes or so by bus or about half an hour by bike from the top of Milton Road. The government has recently announced that it is going to make Northstowe and Waterbeach enterprise zones. It's going to give tax breaks to those who base their companies here. I think it's really important that we advertise that, so everyone who's considering setting up a company in Cambridge or moving their company to Cambridge considers establishing themselves in a place like Northstowe or Waterbeach rather than in the city centre, where they can still benefit from connections to the companies who are in Cambridge and to the university, but where their employees don't have to commute into the city centre every day. So we can keep Milton Road uncongested, the buses that come in from Northstowe should go first to the North Cambridge station. Now, it's never desirable to change mode of transport midway through a journey, but if we can make it as easy as possible by putting plenty of trains on and using combined ticketing and easy ticketing, then people may choose to get on the train to go to the centre of Cambridge, to the current station and onto Addenbrooke's, rather than going down Milton Road. I think the City Deal needs to work closely with Network Rail and the train operating companies when they're considering how we can effectively get people in and out of the city down Milton Road. Here on the Cambridge side of Northstowe is the Oakington Barracks site. Again, it's right next to the guided busway, just a few minutes from the top of Milton Road. The government has just announced that it's going to start building houses here. It's not going to wait for developers to decide to do so. I've been commenting on the proposals to build a new town here at Northstowe for a number of years now, and I've suggested that before the town is built we need to have improvements to the A14, and we need to ensure that broadband internet is provided to all the homes here. If people are living here in Northstowe and want to get to Addenbrooke's, then they're going to have a number of options. They could go on the busway to the Cambridge North Station, go on the train to the Cambridge Central Station and take the busway again out to Addenbrooke's. That might, if there is coordinated ticketing and the trains and buses work together, that could work as quite an effective option. Or they could either take the car or the bus and go on the A14 and M11 round to Addenbrooke's. So far from all the traffic will have to go, and far from all the people will have to go on the busway and down Milton Road. There are other reasonable and sensible options. The new segregated cycleways need to come up at least this far so they properly serve the science park and the business park. Just behind me we've got an example of some rather poor infrastructure. The underpass under the guided busway, which is shared use for cyclists and pedestrians. It's just not particularly attractive for people who are leaving the science park to go off the road to use that subway and then rejoin the road afterwards.
The underpass does provide a safe traffic-free route, and it serves many users. I often choose to use it myself. The underpass, though, is connected to a particularly terrible stretch of shared use cycleway and pavement. It's narrow, heavily used, and passes through a crossing and a busy bus stop. The path also goes round a corner with very poor visibility at the junction with Green End Road. I'm very hopeful that the improvements to Milton Road and adjacent areas will create safe, direct cycle routes and remove the conflict between those travelling in different ways.
I think we need to see a really clear demarcation in this area to show that we're no longer on the A roads and on the dual carriageways, and we're moving into the residential city centre where there are likely to be more cyclists and pedestrians. Perhaps we could see some public art, a large cycle perhaps, and certainly a substantial change to the road environment, which in this area is currently very confusing and cluttered. One proposal is to ban the right turn from Milton Road into Arbury Road. Now, that might make sense at the early morning peak to avoid congestion, but I think City Deal councils need to consider that people who live in North Cambridge do want to be able to travel from one part of the area to another.
We've got to be careful not to criminalise people who are acting just to try and keep themselves safe and avoid injury. For example, cyclists who cross this junction during the pedestrian phase. Bus stops also pose a challenge to those redesigning the road. Now this one is particularly badly positioned, as when a bus stops in it, traffic queues up behind and traffic stops being able to flow through the junction. Moving the bus stop upstream of the junction would be an easy improvement, but perhaps we need to be even more imaginative. Imagine if buses could use Oak Tree Avenue to cut through to Elizabeth Way, and if the buses could stop there, off the main road.
What we've got here is quite interesting. We've got people campaigning to save the cycle path. What they're campaigning to save is shared use pedestrian and cycling pavement in this area. However, there isn't one. It's just that on Milton Road at the moment it's really difficult to work out where you can and can't cycle, and this area has been wrongly signed, and quite reasonably people think they can cycle here. So we need to ensure that in any newly remodelled Milton Road it's really clear where people can and cannot cycle. Councillors in this area recently made anti-social cycling a policing priority. I and others pointed out that it wasn't very clear where cycling is and isn't permitted in the area. Now the signs behind me were put up as an attempt to address that. However, they've been put up the wrong way round, which has meant, well, it's created even greater confusion. We need to make sure that when we remodel Milton Road that it's really clear where cycling is and isn't permitted to avoid conflict.
I think there've got to be ways to make this junction with Elizabeth Way safer for cyclists and pedestrians while maintaining the car movement. I think there have been some good ideas put forward by the cycling campaign here, tightening up the junctions and making it easier to cross.
So this is one area by Chesterton Hall Crescent where a very small amount of contraflow cycling on the shared use path is currently permitted so that people can cross the road. I think this kind of thing needs to be retained so that, again, so we don't criminalise people who are using the newly remodelled Milton Road just because they're trying to do the safe and logical thing.
The junction with Gilbert Road is one where fully protected cycle lanes have the potential to make cycling actually safer and feel safer too. And feeling safer is important because that's what encourages or enables people to use their bikes rather than their cars. Now as we get towards the city centre of Milton Road, the question is, where is the traffic which gets this far actually going? As far as possible, we need to deter people from going through the city centre to get around the city. Now the way that I'd do this is illustrated by thinking about how you'd get from the back of the Guildhall to the front. It's possible for those who need to, but it's not convenient. So I support those who are thinking about how we can break up the inner ring road and deter people from going through the city centre to get around Cambridge, rather than using the A14 and M11 to get from one part of the city to another.